Which Side Podcast is a proud member of the Which Side Media Collective.
This week's episode is brought to us by our Amazon affiliates link. It's pretty simple how it works. You go to our website, whichsidepodcast.com, you click through the Amazon link, and you buy the stuff you were planning to buy through Amazon. You can also click on the link on the show notes if you're lazy, and it really helps us out. We get a small kickback from everything that you buy, and it doesn't cost you anything extra. It actually takes money out of Amazon's pocket. So that's the key to it, right? We all know you're going to buy something from Amazon. If not today, probably next week. So, hey, if you're already planning on doing it, please use our link. We get a kickback, helps fund the show. Everyone wins except Amazon. Amazon only wins if you do it if you weren't planning on it. So, if you're looking for something to get, you can check out The Sustainability Secret by past guest and friend of the show, Keegan Kuhn, as well as Kip Anderson and an introduction by Chris Hedges. And if you don't know who that is, that's the people that brought to you Cowspiracy. Check it out. Hey, and while you're there, check out the Project Animal Farm from this week's guest. This is episode 142. Yeah, we have Sonia Faruqi on, author of Project Animal Farm. It was a really good conversation, so stick around for that. I had a lot of fun with it. Hey, Jordan, what news and events we have going on this week? Well, you should check out the Animal Rights National Conference. It's going on July 30th through August 2nd in Washington, D.C. If you don't have reservations and tickets now, you're probably screwed. Yeah, you can't go now. But if you're already going, check it out. If you're in Denver, you should check out the Anarchist Movie Night. They're showing Can Dialects Break Bricks? So that's July 29th, 8 p.m. If you are in Utah, the 2015 Book Cliffs Climate Justice Action Camp is going on August 1st. And also in Utah is a Justice for Corey Kanosh benefit concert on August 1st. If you have an event going on in your neck of the woods, drop us a line. We'll throw it out there for you. This week's listener shout out comes from Charlotte Malrich again. Charlotte says that we can shout out whatever we want. Charlotte always says we can shout out whatever we want. Charlotte, you're fucking awesome. Yeah. So, this week, we want to shout out all the anti-Confederacy, anti-KKK, and anti-police demonstrations. Just Black Lives Matter rallies. Just go out there, get shit done. Be a supportive ally. Fuck shit up. Tear down the walls. I'm going to slingshot this over to Jeremy. What's in the slingshot this week? Well, Jordan, on August 2nd, 1877, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 60 striking miners were wounded by the police. Has there ever been a time when police aren't just firing on workers? Well, as far as I know. If you like these little tidbits of history, we pulled them out of the Slingshot Personal Organizer. It's really awesome. You should get one yourself. It keeps you organized and gives you these cool little history facts. You can get one at a local info shop or an online info shop like AK Press. They don't pay us for this. We just really like them. So help support them. I really hope that you enjoy this episode.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side? Which side are you on? 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 Which side are you on?
Hey, how are you guys? Related or friends, I guess?
Yeah, we're actually related. I guess we're brother-in-laws? Is that what would it be called? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He's married to my sister. Yeah.
See.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Perfect. I just wanted to know the details. You've been communicating with one of the outreach managers for my book, Hallie Simpson. I think Mariana's been communicating with her. So I might have, maybe you communicated this information to her, but I missed out on it. So
Oh, yeah.
the Skype chat was helpful.
Oh, good. So how's your week been going for you?
It's been good. It's been very busy with a lot of media, a lot of radio as well. The book's getting traction in the U.S. and Canada. I live in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been good getting the issue of animals to the mainstream public.
How has most of the media been treating you? Like, is it kind of like the same thing over and over again? Or are they really like diving into like what your book is about?
It's the level of detail varies as they cover Project Animal Farm. Some of them already know the subject and the issues fairly well. Some of them are more new to the topic. But I think overall it's all been very positive. All the reviews have been really positive, and the press as well. So I'm pretty happy with how things are going. It's been good in the last, I guess, it's only been 8 days since the book has been out.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That must have been just like a huge blitz, like going through everything. Have you ever every time I've done media, I've experienced this. So if you haven't yet, I think you're lucky. But have you ever just had the dumbest question in the world that you're like, I don't even know where you're going with this?
Yes, that does sometimes happen, and then like you have to steer the conversation back into the right direction.
Uh-huh.
So it does definitely happen, and I think while like the person means well, there's so many books being published, so they may not have read it perfectly or something of the sort.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand completely. But it has happened when sometimes I'm surprised by a question that, oh, where did this come from? I've never heard that before.
Do you want to share one of those with us?
Let me see. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but if I do over the course of our conversation, and I very well might, then I will definitely let you know.
Hopefully it won't be one of ours.
No, I think we're all set.
So what really, I mean, without giving away too much of the book, what really got you into writing this book and going down this journey?
So Project Animal Farm, it's subtitled An Accidental Journey into the Secret World of Farming and the Truth About Our Food. And it really was very accidental for me. I worked on Wall Street. That's been my background. I loved numbers. I loved the fast-paced lifestyle of New York investment banking. And I started off when things started going downhill. The economic recession happened, and there were hundreds of thousands of layoffs, and I lost my job. And at that stage, I was wondering what I wanted to do, and I was taking my time to figure things out, to read, to learn, and I thought I would like to go on a vacation, and I found myself volunteering at an organic dairy farm.
One of the things that really surprised me was when you were talking about the hours you were working as a banker, that you actually loved it. Like you loved that type of work, and that really shocked me. Like what really like gave you that love for it?
I like being productive, and I like the feeling of being busy. I loved being in New York. I liked the compensation as well. I liked the prestige of the job. And I like numbers. I was often given a lot of financial modeling to do, where you're predicting a company's financial future into the next years. So I liked the job overall. I thought it was a good fit for me in multiple ways in terms of how my mind worked, where my interests ran. I was an economics major previously. Mm-hmm. So I didn't mind the hours. I wasn't tired or any of that. And I think when you're in your early 20s, also or at least I was just full of energy, just bouncing with energy. So in a way, it was an outlet for my energy.
Do you still feel like you have that same like level, but just redirect it in other ways now?
I think so. I do spend 6 to 7 days of the week on Project Animal Farm related stuff, whether research, writing, interviewing, or any of the back end logistics. And so I do find that, yes, the energies are redirected toward this project.
That a lot of people might be surprised by hearing how much energy you're putting into your book after it's already written. Like, what kind of stuff do you really have to put that much energy into?
There's a lot to do. There's a team of interns who are very helpful. They arrange radio shows and podcasts, and I do that, and working with the publisher and the agent on the publicity of the book.
Mm-hmm.
Because publicity is very important. It determines whether or not people hear about the book. Also, events, speaking events, arranging the events, and traveling to them as well. So it's certainly a busy time, and I think it's worth it. A book has its own sort of life cycle. Like other products are launched and they have their own life cycles, and producing a product means you're putting in the time into the research and development. But also when it's out, then your energies shift toward focusing on just getting the word out about it.
Mm-hmm. And what has that reception been? I know it's only been out a little bit now, but what have people been saying?
The reception overall has been positive, and the reviews have been positive. Publishers Weekly gave Project Animal Farm a starred review, which is relatively rare, and all the articles in the US and Canada have been positive toward the book. Readers, as far as I can tell, the people who attend events as well have been positive. So I am hopeful that the book helps to create change.
One of the things that I really loved about going through the book was you didn't just focus on like North American centric. Like you really went out there and pushed the boundaries and going across borders. Like what drove you to do that? Is that a specific reason, or was it more of the I just wanted to travel and this was a good reason to do it?
The reason was that I wanted to find solutions to the animal welfare problems I was witnessing at farms. And so in part one of Project Animal Farm, I'm in Canada where I live, and I go to the different sectors of animal agriculture. I meet all the different people and players involved. And at that stage, I see how difficult the situation is for animals today in this huge food industry. And I decide that I want to see how it is in other countries. What can I learn from other countries that can be applied globally? So it's really an international expedition to find solutions.
What kind of solutions did you think did you find that you could bring back, to United States and Canada?
There are two kinds of solutions in Project Animal Farm. One of them I call producer solutions relating to producers, and one of them I call consumer solutions relating to people like us and just day-to-day people, to have at least basic standards. Inspections as well are important. And consumer solutions are perhaps the most important in that we need to think about how we're eating, reducing meat consumption or eliminating meat consumption, or possibilities. And so the book is really trying to raise awareness that results in action.
So you've witnessed a lot of horrible things, to say the least. How do you cope with with some of the stuff that you've seen?
I find that it's easy to cope, actually, because there is hope. There is hope for a better world. If, for instance, I'd embarked on this big global expedition in Project Animal Farm and I had found no real solutions, no answers, no possibilities for a better world, then I can understand that I wouldn't be very happy. But because I did find hope, I did glimpse ideas and develop insights that can make the world a better place, I do feel overall fairly positive. Another aspect that motivated me throughout Project Animal Farm is the people I came to meet. I liked them overall. I thought they were nice people, and whether intentionally or inadvertently, they spurred me on to keep going in this. So I am very hopeful, I would say.
And that's something that a lot of people don't really realize. Like slaughterhouse workers and stuff like that, it's not always their fault, and
it's just like a job. Yeah,
they're not always the bad person.
Absolutely, they're not. And realistically, if many of us had our positions in life changed in some ways, like if we started slaughter work at the age of 16, or we're in situations like being high school dropouts or having really significant challenges in life, I think these jobs like slaughter work or working at a factory farm are common jobs for some people. And it's not really their fault, and often they themselves are victims of this giant industry, and they're treated like cogs, and they're churned out just like the animals.
It reminds me of an interview we did with some undercover investigators, and they brought that up too, with that it's very, when they talk to the workers hate it themselves, but they are pushed to get production, metrics and get so many animals through, or so hit their guidelines, and they're forced to cut corners or forced to do different things, and they hate the job themselves, and it puts them in very dangerous situations.
Absolutely. Slaughter work is especially a dangerous line of work. It's among the most dangerous lines of work that anybody could possibly be in. Most industries have become safer over time, but slaughter has become more dangerous. Injury and illness rates are among the highest of all industries, and 15 to 30% of slaughter workers do suffer injuries like cuts, strains, traumas, burns, severed fingers, or even arms. And so they are at severe personal risk, and I found also psychological risk.
Do you feel like the institution of like ag laws here in the United States not only like puts a blinder on like what's happening to the animals, but I think it also blinds what the workers are actually having to do at the same time? It's like a double blind wall to the public. It really closes off whistleblowers.
It closes off whistleblowers, and ag laws are incredibly undemocratic. They're dangerous in their own way, in that they're restricting information, they're reducing transparency, they're reducing accountability, and these are very important. I think ag laws are definitely something we should be more concerned about throughout the United States.
It's funny, here in Utah, I drive by a slaughterhouse, the same slaughterhouse that Amy Myers was arrested for under ag laws, every single day going to work. And ever since that arrest, it used to be very open. Like you could see the feedlot, you could see where they bring the animals in, and now they've really they built up high fences, they park semis around it. They're really trying to block it off more and more as they get more and more media attention. I really don't think that they know how to handle attention at all. I don't want to be a PR spokesman and be like, this is how you should handle it, but I think they are doing it the best way possible for activists, because the more secrecy, the more that we control the story, almost.
That's a good point. They're saying we don't want to have anything to do with this at all, pretty much. And I think, right, and they don't want any attention. Any attention is considered bad attention, which often it is, and for good reason. Mm-hmm.
It makes me wonder if we, as activists, like what we can do to focus on that even more. Like, it's that double-edged sword where you're like, well, we want, to be let in. We want to know what's happening. But at the same time, if we are letting people know what's happening, will people really be as shocked? If that makes sense. Like, will they be desensitized towards it?
I think it's tough to tell, and it varies by person. Mm-hmm. Some people are certainly desensitized. When we're reading the news, there's often so much bad news. So whether we're talking about police, whether we're talking about wars, or, any of the other serious issues, environmental issues as well, that are in the news. And so I think a level of desensitization is common enough, even and perhaps especially among people who are informed on these issues. Mm-hmm. That said, I think that it's necessary for us to know more, because often it does result in action. Not always, but often people do change their lives once they hear about what's going on and how they are often unintentionally playing a part in the systems that are in place.
Reading the book, it really made me think about a lot of the struggles that animal rights activists have faced for a long time, which is the difference between animal rights activism and animal welfare activism. Like at the end of the book, you talk about, like Meatless Mondays and cutting out meat consumption. And, I agree, those are great things. But as an animal rights activist, I have a hard time putting my daily activism behind that instead of the complete abolition. How do you view that?
So Project Animal Farm focuses on animal welfare. It doesn't get into philosophy much. It's an investigative book. So in each book plays a role, and it has its function, and it shouldn't overstep its boundaries in a way. So I've stuck to my boundaries in this book, in terms of keeping the focus on the investigations, on what I saw, smelled, heard, touched, and it's a sensory and intellectual and emotional book, but it's not a philosophical book. And overall, I think when it comes to activism or any form of advocacy, it's important to recognize the similarities more than the differences. Mm-hmm. The food industry is fragmented and it is divided, but not even a fraction as much as animal activists or environmental activists or other activists are often divided among themselves. And I think what I like to say is that everyone should do something, and not doing everything is no reason to do nothing. Because if things are portrayed as black or white or good or evil, and people, consumers and producers, are both put into camps based on black and white and good and evil, it is often not productive. It can also be harmful. So I've focused on the facts in the book and my opinions as they relate to the facts. And overall, I think it's important for advocates to be united and in some areas to agree to disagree, but to remember that their goals remain the same.
What do you think causes that fracturing in a lot of activism, like you were talking about? The fracturing between rights, welfareists, environmentalists, and others like social justice movements.
What causes this? I think there are a couple of factors. The first one that comes to mind is ego, and people want to feel like they're right. I mean, this fractiousness is common not just among activists, but also in religions. There, two groups of the same religion may not be getting along, or two parts of the same country may not be getting along. And I find that I'm not a psychologist clearly, but it might come down to ego.
Mm-hmm.
But it's important to set aside ego sometimes and to focus on the bigger picture, which is that the world we're living in today does need some very significant changes, and we're more likely to achieve at least some of those changes if we're working together rather than bickering among each other and not getting anything done because of that.
That's one of the things we talk about a lot is the intersectionality between different movements. Where do you see that intersectionality lying right now, and where do you see it falling short that we should, as a community, build together?
The movements, so movements can be alienating to those who are not a part of that movement. And having these identities, sometimes like being an animal rights activist or being an environmental activist, sometimes alienates the other people who are interested but are not necessarily self-identifying as an activist or as an animal rights activist. And I think movements do sometimes miss the mainstream. But without the mainstream public, without the mainstream person, the average person, the average mom or dad, the average person going about their life with their job, with their day-to-day concerns and their day-to-day struggles and happinesses and emotions, if the average person is missed and does not even know of this movement, let alone being a part of this movement, then change becomes very difficult. Because if we are really trying to change the lives of animals, or we're trying to change the environment, then these are big enough issues and important and challenging enough issues that we really do need everybody to be on board, as many people as possible. And so I think it's important to keep that in mind, the mainstream versus the movement.
That's a good way of putting it. I like that.
Thank you.
So how do you think that, we kind of talked about it, but how can we really just get welfareists and animal rights activists just to get along?
to shake hands?
Yeah.
How can we get them to shake hands? Well, what do you guys think?
Stop listening to Francione.
Okay.
No, I shouldn't say that. But I don't know the answer. I really think it comes down to a respect for what people feel that they should be working on, right? So if someone who is advocating for animal welfare, that's what they feel they should be working on. Me as an animal rights activist, who should I be saying that it should be different? We're both really fighting for the same thing. They're just on a different step of the same thing, if that makes sense. So I think it really comes down to respect.
Mm-hmm.
I think it comes down to respect. I think if we're to use an analogy, we can view it as a house. We're trying to build this house and we're getting crowded out by all the skyscrapers next to us. And if we're fighting among each other, then the house never gets built. And for other people to focus on the other parts of the house. I mean, whenever we're looking at anything as a collective or a unit, whether it's a company or whether it's a construction crew or any sort of team, different people are playing different roles to the best of their ability. And if you were to try to switch around their roles, it wouldn't necessarily work. But they're recognizing their different strengths and also their different weaknesses, and they're coming together to work together to create something better than either of them could have created just by themselves. And recognizing that means letting go of ego, letting go of I'm right, you're wrong, and I'm the best, you're the worst, and those sorts of mindsets and ideologies that can be damaging and very, very limiting, not only personally, but also to broader societal goals.
Yeah, I really think that everybody can work on different things, and it's not really my place to say what's the right thing to work on.
It's kind of
Exactly.
it's like that house analogy. If one person says, "Well, I'm going to work on the porch," and another person says, "I'm going to work on the back porch," and they just argue, nothing's ever going to get done.
Right.
Yeah.
That's precisely it, I think.
But I want to build the back porch. No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, as someone I'm a huge fan of like consensus building and utilizing that, and you viewing that in the same way that we view movements. As anyone knows who's been part of like large consensus groups, it's really about finding that compromise because everyone's not always going to be happy, and we need to be okay with that going into it, I guess.
Yes, I agree.
I like to use the analogy like if you're in a consensus group and somebody wants to paint the wall red and you really hate red, is it worth it to fight about it, or are you gonna compromise, let it slide, so that there's something else that's worse?
So the wall actually gets painted.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, pick your battles, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So in the book, you said you've been vegetarian for 10 years. Is that right?
Yes.
What brought you to vegetarianism? Like, what was your origin to that? Like, what was the catalyst?
Was
Was
I
that
saw-
before the story, or I didn't really tell?
Yes, Project Animal Farm starts at 19 or 20 in university. I came across some videos online and was disturbed by them and decided, I'll try to be vegetarian. It took me a couple of times of trying it to actually get it and make it a part of my life. But it's been about 10 years.
Do you use any of the fake meats and things like that?
I do sometimes, I suppose. In restaurants, at home, I usually try to use whole foods and fresh fruits and vegetables and lentils and beans. I do sometimes use tofu as well.
I was just gonna say I've been amazed about how much those kind of products have changed in the last 10 years. Like, have you really noticed that? And do you think it's changing for the better?
They have changed these meat products, and also there's soy milk, almond milk, and there's lots of different products. I think it definitely is a category that's been evolving significantly and noticeably across the U.S. and Canada.
Do you feel like these are good products to be promoting? I know some people argue that we shouldn't be advocating the eating of flesh no matter what, and that just kind of glorifies it. I don't personally fall in that camp, but how do you feel about that?
I agree with you that it's sort of irrelevant what it tastes like. It just matters whether you like that taste, because it's better to eat this fake meat than to eat, this antibiotic fed, factory farm, genetically manipulated chicken. Like any day, that comparison seems obvious. Mm-hmm. I think so. I don't think it's an issue if people want to eat fake meats. And that said, some people don't like them, others do like them, and some others like them a lot. So I'm sort of, I guess, in the middle, but I don't view it as an ethical issue. It's mostly an aesthetic issue.
I always like to remind people I didn't stop eating animals because I didn't like the taste.
I see.
So coming from Toronto, there's a lot of awesome like vegan restaurants and bakeries and even pizza shops and stuff like that. Have you ever tried any of those? And also, what are some of the best places that you've been to since you have traveled pretty much all over?
I do like the vegan food in Toronto. There's a number of restaurants that are good. I guess to name a few off the top of my head, there's Fresh, there's Zen Gardens, there's Guru Lakshmi, it's an Indian restaurant, and there are lots of others. That said, I find the vegan food in New York to be very good.
Mm-hmm.
I just was visiting New York, and I just came today to Boston, and I was going to vegan restaurants in New York, and they're really very good.
What about when you were abroad? Was there any places that you visited that were just really good?
There were. I don't remember the names. I did go to a few restaurants that were vegetarian or vegan, but I can't remember the names off the top of my head.
One of the things in the book that I like that you talked about was that in order to get away from the intensive factory farming, even if you wanted to still use animals and went to like grass fed and everything else, you really need to completely cut back the consumption, and it's not just a little bit, right? Like wouldn't the consumption have to be cut back like pretty dramatically to still have enough land to raise animals for agricultural purposes?
Yes, I don't know if it's possible to calculate an exact number of how much meat consumption would need to be reduced in the US or globally, but it would definitely need to reduce. The current meat consumption levels that we're seeing in the US and Canada and around the world in general are unprecedented. Meat used to be viewed as a luxury, and now it's being viewed as something where we as a society are entitled to. There's a person in Project Animal Farm. I meet him in Malaysia. He works for the Malaysian government, and he's very well informed on agricultural trends in the country. And he's about 50 or so years of age. He tells me that when he was a kid, he used to eat chicken twice a year. And now he eats chicken twice a day. Previously, meat used to be more of a luxury thing on special occasions or on special days or special celebrations. It was more consumed at those times, but it wasn't like this 2 to 3 times a day habit that it has become today.
I think I saw a statistic somewhere that's saying just to feed the United States alone on like on a happy meat or grass fed type of cattle, you'd have to fill every square inch of North America and South America, and that's the current consumption levels, right? That's at the current consumption levels just for the United States.
I see.
So.
I think different studies might calculate it differently, but regardless, we definitely need to be thinking about our
cutting it
meat
out,
consumption and reducing it, and the more, the better.
The idea of like the status of eating meat, like you were talking about, we were talking to a previous guest, is it Dino, the alternative veg, and whenever he goes back home to India and his family cooks him food and he's just like, he wants all the veg food and like the dals and things, they always look at him funny because it's the cheap, the the easy things to make. It's not like,
The
the expensive, like, what, but you're right. It's a very, very big status symbol to be able to have that wealth to be able to utilize for animal consumption.
Yes, it's become a situation where class is associated with carnivorousness.
Mm-hmm.
And just as people think that once you get richer, you need a bigger car, you need a bigger house, in the same way, there's this assumption that you need more meat on the plate. And it's a harmful assumption, the assumption of having meat on the plate or showing wealth that way to oneself and to others is one that is, it's psychological, and that's something that makes it tough to battle, because it's not that there's necessarily logic behind it, but it's emotional, and it's considered important for that reason.
Do you think that like the idea of consumption and the idea of capitalism goes hand in hand with the idea of animal agriculture?
I don't think so. I do believe in capitalism overall, and capitalism isn't the problem as such. It's capitalism without any controls, without any rules, without any laws, and it's because of that it's harmful to the industry itself. I would compare it to driving out on the street. If we're driving and there's no traffic lights, there's no street signs, there's nothing to guide all of these different drivers who are going about they're going on their way, then we're going to have collisions and accidents and fatalities. And it's the same way with capitalism. We do need rules, we do need laws, and without these rules and laws, there can be chaos. And these rules and laws are necessary for the industry that's being regulated itself. The agriculture industry, one of my most common elements of my conversations with farmers everywhere in the world has been bird flu. People are scared to death of bird flu, and the fact is, if animals are treated this way and kept in this way, and if the food system or this industry is as it is, then bird flu is going to be likely and almost expected every few years, if not more. So I don't think it's capitalism that's the problem as such. It's unregulated capitalism. If we're playing any game, the game has rules. The different players have to follow those rules, or they can no longer be in the game. And in this industry as well, and in any industry, we do need laws, we do need rules to have at least basic standards.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you mention somewhere in the book about a lot of things like bird flu and swine flu stemming or coming from factory farms? It's starting out at factory farm. Is that correct?
Yes.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. In Asia, in Project Animal Farm, I visited Indonesia, Malaysia, and Singapore. These are 3 countries in Southeast Asia. And in all of them, I went to villages and operations that had been affected by bird flu. So when other countries take on these factory farming systems, they copy them from the U.S., but they don't have the sort of protocols or food safety, which is not to say that the United States has a lot of this, but when there's no protocol or sort of checking and it's unregulated and uncontrolled, then once bird flu starts, it can spread very, very rapidly. The swine flu of 2009 was a combination of bird, swine, and human viruses that was together called swine flu, and it's estimated to have killed a couple 100,000 people in 200 countries. It was a huge catastrophe resulting in so many deaths, and especially among poor people who were the most affected by it because they had the least access to healthcare. So these flus are deadly, and flu viruses are more dangerous than bacterial issues like salmonella or others because flu viruses mutate and we cannot control them by drugs like antibiotics. So flus are a significant problem. The human health risks overall posed by factory farms today, by this industrial agriculture, are significant issues that really affect people all over the world.
When you talk about regulation, what kind of regulations would you like to see in effect, and how would you propose that those would be enforced?
Regulations. So Europe has played a good role with passing regulations, and this is not, and it does have a way to go, but it has taken important steps. For instance, in the European Union, animal welfare is legally on an equal footing with other societal principles we believe in, like gender equality, like healthcare, like education. And when countries make their laws, they're legally required to pay attention to animal welfare. On a more practical level, and I should also mention, in the European law, animals are recognized as sentient beings. That's the exact phrase that's used, sentient beings, not objects, not property.
Mm-hmm.
And on a practical level, Europe has banned the most extreme confinement systems that we see today in North America. The egg-laying hen cages, where hens live in tiny cages. 95% of hens in the US and Canada are kept in those cages. In contrast, in the European Union, you get punished legally if you keep hens in such cages. Banning the gestation crates for sows, banning crates for veal calves. So these are very practical measures that Europe has taken, and for practices that are standard in North America. And so Europe does offer a good role model to follow, and it does show that regulations can play a positive role. In terms of how the regulations are being implemented, we need inspections. I've been on inspections once of a farm and once of a slaughter plant, and both of them were rubber stamp inspections. Nothing was being inspected and everything was being approved. So we do need a system of regulations and inspections that works meaningfully toward actually protecting society and animals. When we're protecting animals, we're also protecting consumers and workers. And so we do really need a different legal apparatus than the one we have right now.
When you talk about the regulations that they have right now in Europe, what would you imagine being like the next step? Let's say the rest of the world really adopted very similar guidelines. What would be the next step? Like, what would be the next forms of fighting for welfare or rights issues?
One of the issues that's common today, and that is a severe welfare issue, is the genetic breeding. chickens today especially are genetically bred to grow so fast that their legs can't keep up with the weight of their bodies. I've been to chicken factory farms around the world, and often chickens will be lame. Enter and you'll see that all the chickens are sitting down, and I've chased them to see if they actually move, and they hardly do. They'll walk a couple of steps and they'll plop down again. Um, the reason is that their legs are not strong enough to support the weight of their ballooning bodies. Chickens today gain in 6 weeks the amount of weight they used to gain previously in 16 weeks. So it's been very rapid and harmful short-term minded genetic manipulation of chickens and of other animals. Chickens have seen it the most, chickens and turkeys. So we do need to start thinking about genetic breeding, and those companies that are doing this extreme level of breeding that's creating welfare issues from pretty much the beginning of the animal's life, those companies do need a form of regulation themselves. I think that would be an important area, and there are other areas as well.
And isn't it broiler chickens that are mainly the ones that are the
Yes.
large ones, where the egg-laying chickens tend to be smaller so they can stuff more into a cage?
So the egg-laying hens at their adult size are bigger than the broiler chickens at their slaughter size. So egg-laying hens start laying eggs when they're a few months of age, and so they're like fairly tall. They're about 1.5 feet tall, I would say. Broiler chickens, on the other hand, are a very different shape. They're fat, they're not tall, they're very short, and they're slaughtered very early, often at 4 to 6 weeks of age, because it's actually difficult for them to even live up to 6 months of age or up to 4 months of age. They are growing so fast that they do often have heart attacks. So I guess the size of the broiler chicken at the slaughter age is smaller than the size of the egg-laying hen. But that's because the broiler chicken doesn't really have a long lifespan because of his genetic breeding.
Can't broiler chickens with their genetic breeding, if they did like go full grown, like most of them can't walk and things like that because of is that true, or am I thinking of something else?
Imagine if you're 700 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Then because of that, it's a lot of strain on your joints to support all of that weight. Because when you're gaining all of this weight, it's not like the bones are becoming thicker to support all of this extra flesh that has been added on. So they're struggling to support all of that weight, and moving is going to be uncomfortable at that weight. So for chickens, the comparison would be even more than that. And their entire body structure of broiler chickens is unnatural. The size of their heart compared to the size of the rest of their body, the size of their legs as well, and they're often bred for a large breast because that's deemed to be the most profitable and most demanded part of the body. And so you'll sometimes see them plopping down, they're plopping forward because their breast is too big to support in a way. So yes, it is challenging for them to move.
I've always had the personal belief that chickens, as far as like animal agriculture go, probably have it the worst out of most animals. Not to downplay what other animals have to go through, but I mean, starting at the very beginning, from the sexting to the debeaking, all the way through, it just seems like they get the short end of the stick.
I don't know how I'd compare the different animals, but it is certainly true that with chickens, things have gone way too far, and there also seems to be less knowledge about the chicken breeding and the conditions compared to the other animals.
How familiar are you with fur-bearing animals? I know that oftentimes they aren't considered livestock, so they don't even have to check on them on a daily basis in some cases.
Project Animal Farm focuses on farm animals, and I haven't visited any fur farms, so I would hesitate to comment on them because I don't have the level of experience on that topic.
Well, I would love to hear your take if you ever do go to one. I would like to be honest. So.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
Well, how can people, follow your work and get a copy of the book and see what the project's up to?
I'm very active on my website. In terms of getting Project Animal Farm, it's available online on Amazon and other websites. It's available at Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, and other local booksellers. So please get the book. And also, I love hearing from people, from listeners, from readers. I'd love to know what you think. And I can be reached through my website. My website is soniafaruqi.com. And I'm also active on Twitter, updating it with what's going on. And that's at Sonia_Faruqi. I should also mention on my website there's a lot of resources. There's a whole gallery of pictures that I took in the writing of Project Animal Farm. There's free excerpts that people can read. There's a whole bunch of information about myself and resources relating to the book as well.
I got to say, when you brought it up, it reminded me, some of the pictures you have on your website are just really breathtaking. I love a lot of them, and there are a lot of pictures that you don't get to see very often. So I definitely have people check that out because they're really cool.
Thank you. I'm glad you like them.
Well, thank you so much for taking your time out for doing this.
Thank you to both of you. I enjoyed this conversation, and I have to say I don't think I've had this sort of conversation yet about activism specifically. So it was interesting to think about some of these issues relating to advocacy and activism. I thought it was a fascinating conversation that we had.
Oh, well, thank you. I thought it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was great.
Great.
Okay. Well, have a great night.
Perfect. You too. Thank you.
Right. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.
Fuck shit damn.
This week you heard
Try by Smith and Mighty.
Right now you're listening to
Raindrops by Cillo.
iTunes. Just wanted to give a big thank you to Tony Hooligan for giving us a review on iTunes. If you're not Tony, or if you haven't left a review, please do consider it. I mean, a bunch of you are listening right now utilizing iTunes. Just, click on the button that says stars and click I love the show and help us out.
It really helps us, and it helps us provide better content for you, because the more people listen, the better we can get, honestly.
It's really true. I mean, listen to the first episodes. They kind of suck. I mean, not kind of. They're really bad.
Yeah, I don't know if you should listen to our back catalog.
Yeah, please.
If this
Actually,
is your first.
let me recant that. Don't listen to those. They're that bad.
They're not that bad. I think the first episode we have, I talk about chiropractor, though.
No, I think you talk about acupuncture.
That's what I meant, yeah.
Yeah.
Woo.
Yep. So don't do that, and just rate and review us.
Hashtag ghost review.
We didn't talk about ghost reviews.
They know what's up.
Okay. You know what's up.
If you're not our friend, then that's rude. You should be our friend. You should like us. You should follow us. You should obey. You could conform and consume.
We like
And
you.
It's debatable. But go to Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook and do the thing you do. We often talk about things
Troll
on there.
people? Is that what you do?
Yeah. And Reddit too. If you're gonna be trolling, just,
If you're going to be a troll,
we don't have anything on Reddit, but just troll.
unless you want to put something on Reddit for us.
Our Which Side podcast?
No, I mean, you can put it on like our vegan or our anarchist or our veganarchist or our animal rights, or there's a bunch of them.
I think people have posted. Our
People
episode.
have, but I mean, I'm just saying.
We don't have a dedicated subreddit.
No, we don't. Unless someone wants to make one for us.
I don't know why you would.
Someone made a Wikipedia page for us.
It's true.
So thank you, but be our friend.
Fuck this shit. Damn.
It didn't make any sense.
What?
Fuck this shit down.
Fuck this shit. Damn.
Okay, that's a little better.
All right.
Which Side Podcast is hosted and produced by Jordan Halliday and Jeremy Parkin of the Which Side Media Collective, with web design by Jordan Halliday and sound design by Jeremy Parkin. Booking by Mari Halliday. Theme music by Commandantes. Go to whichsidecollective.org to check out the other shows in the collective. As always, fuck shit damn.